Welcome to Octagon Circles and Squares, an NBC sports podcast covering the cage, the mat, and the ring. I'm your host, Steven D'Agostino, and this week we are talking UFC 303. Originally supposed to be the Conor McGregor card, but still a great card nonetheless. Opening up Saturday's festivities on the pay-per-view is Michael Venom Page versus Ian Machado Garry. MVP joins the show to talk about this awesome striking matchup. Then also the co-main event, Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. Ortega joins the show as well to talk about this tough up-and-coming challenger as he's mulling a move to 155. To help us win some money on Saturday's festivities, our betting analyst Brad Thomas will swing by to give us some of his favorite bets, as always. But first, the best American athletes look to punch their tickets to the Paris Olympics. The U.S. Olympic team trials part of Making Team USA is now until June 30th. Check all the action on NBC and Peacock. Joined now by Michael Venom Page right before his big fight this weekend at UFC 303. Michael, before we get started, I want to ask you a fun one here to warm us up. Your nickname comes from a 1970s martial arts film, The Five Deadly Venoms. Does that sound right? Am I on spot with that?
Yeah, well, we started the nickname just before, shall I say, as in not before the film, just before. And then the same guy that gave me the nickname, my brother Marvin Francis, we started playing around. He showed me that film. We were all into Kung Fu films. He showed me that film, and then we started playing, like, I was making up moves for each like Five Deadly Venom. So it just became a thing.
I myself am a big 70s Kung Fu fan. I love the Sonny Chiba films. Street Fighters was amazing. I'm gonna need your top 3 martial arts films to start us off here.
It's always so difficult with regards to films like this, but I'll give some that are just memorable to me. Tai Chi Masters, which is a Jet Li. It's also called Twin Warriors. I think they've changed it from sometimes they have Chinese titles versus the English titles. So yeah, it's either one of those. It's a Jet Li movie. Rumble in the Bronx is a Jackie Chan movie. Another one, Mills on Wheels, which is another Jackie Chan movie with Sammo Hung. I used to love that film. And then the 26 Chambers of Shaolin. That one. Yeah, that's a classic.
If you like Wu-Tang Clan, you have to like the 26 Chambers of Shaolin, of course.
Yeah.
Well, very, very exciting fighter yourself, MVP. A lot of that comes from, it feels like you're watching a Kung Fu movie when you're in the cage. I remember when they announced you signing to the UFC, and I don't remember a lot of buzz that was that large in the promotion in a long time. What was that first fight like? Was there like I made it to the big show moment, or were you kind of like, this has been a long time coming and I've expected this for a long time?
Yeah, it definitely felt a bit more like this has been a long time coming, and very much like every second I've got here, it feels like I've always been here. I think it's definitely based on how welcomed I've been, or I've how hosted I've been with regards to the team, but also I think just me knowing, like I said, I always tell people I was manifested it. I feel like I've seen this already, and I knew I'd be here, and I knew feel comfortable. So I never really had that moment of like I'm in the UFC, but in a good way.
I know that you wanted to finish in that first fight, didn't get it. It was still a great scrap. Was there anything that you took away from that first fight, maybe critically, or things that you felt good about yourself that you're going to take into this second UFC bout here?
Yeah, 100%. There's definitely moments where I could have capitalized or just pushed myself a little bit more, worked a little bit harder, landed a few more shots in those moments. So it's just there's certain pockets during the fight that I could be busier. And yeah, definitely want to try and I've been fixing that. Obviously, let's hope that it transfers over. Sometimes it doesn't always convert over from what you've been doing in the gym. But I know even just the base level is still effective, still wins fights.
You had touched on it just briefly now that you always felt like you deserved to be here, and you said earlier in the week too that it feels like if this fight was outside the UFC, people would be saying, "Oh, MVP's fighting another can," but now you're fighting a top 10 guy, and it's like, what the hell? I've been doing this for a long time. When did that confidence set in for you early on that you felt like I deserve to be here, and how much of a weapon is that confidence for you?
I think confidence is a massive tool for any person in combat sports, regardless of what you're doing. Again, you're standing across the ring, cage, mat, whatever it is, octagon, from somebody that is, trying to take your head off, somebody that is trying to, make you submit, make you put you to sleep. You have to be confident in everything you're doing. You can do everything right in the gym, everything right in your training, get to that night, struggle with confidence, and then not perform simply because of your lack of confidence. So for me, just having confidence in my abilities in general, is I think it was a game changer, because it meant under the lights, when it really counts, I'm comfortable, I'm relaxed, I'm able to continue executing what I do in the gym. So yeah, confidence is a massive factor in our game.
You can see that confidence through every level of your game, including like working with the media, and you just don't seem to get rattled ever, which should come in handy against a guy like Ian Machado Garry, who's a massive trash talker. With that said, the BBL Gary thing might be one of the best things I've heard in a long time. So you're pretty game with the trash talking too. How did that come about, and what can we expect in this walkout on Saturday?
To be fair, I just wanted, with regards to this walkout, I just wanted to release something that ahead of time, that is catchy, sticks in your head, and then also you can just participate in. I almost wanted to create almost a concert feel, you know. So that's my gift for the walkout. I've got celebrations as well. So it's just a case of, that's why I wanted to get it out, and obviously, I like the little banter and going back and forth. So, speaking with my family, they're my think tank, shall I say? Like, we get together, we start brainstorming stuff. Not even intentionally, we just talk about stuff and things come up. My brother mentioned that, he's like, "Oh, do you remember that the snail in SpongeBob is called Gary?" And everyone started laughing, and I just started doing research of like loads of clips of SpongeBob and Gary moments, and then I just started like sending them to my guy, my creative director, Kishan, and told him exactly what kind of thing I want. I literally explained the whole build up. I actually knew, even on Ariel Hawani show, that I was gonna mention it, and I knew that he'd pick up on it. And this was why I didn't have to tell him anything like ahead of time. He naturally did it. And I made sure I said it something. I said something odd, just to make it a bit, to stand out a little bit more. And yeah, he did exactly that. So I had people kind of in the comments already talking about BBL Gary, and then the track was being developed in the background. We already had that going, but it wasn't. I needed to get it right, and then we wanted to spin it into something that, like I said, the crowd involvement. So it can't be too fast paced. It has to be a bit more like a 80s, 70s, 80s type of vibe, where you can just kind of two step to it. And yeah, we think we got it right.
Listening to you describe that's incredible, because no one else is doing this stuff in the fight game, which makes you so entertaining and so fun to watch. And it kind of reminds me of what you'd said about Ian being like a fake Conor McGregor, right? He's not being authentic to himself. Whereas we're dropping SpongeBob memes. You like video games and old kung
Yeah,
fu movies.
yeah.
Is that liberating to just be yourself in the fight game when you're unapologetically Michael Venom Page all the time?
100%, man. Like, I literally, that was a statement I gave to myself, and I promised that I made to myself, that if I cross over to mixed martial arts, I'm only gonna do it my way. I'm not gonna do it any other way. As in, that was more down to just the fight side of things. As in, like, I've been fighting side on, blitzing in and out for 20 plus years. If it doesn't work in MMA, then that the MMA path is not for me. But I do want to try it, and then that kind of became a mantra almost for everything that I did, regardless of the comments, the negative comments. I was always going to be like, you're going to stay true to yourself. This is how you was beforehand. And for those that look at, let's say, some of my old school fights in the kickboxing world, I was taunting, I was dancing, I haven't changed at all, other than adjusted my game to fit the mixed martial arts world, and kept my same personality, which is like I said, it's something that I almost made a promise to myself at the beginning.
We know no matter what, we're always going to get an entertaining fight watching MVP. As far as the cage itself, it's a striker versus striker matchup. What strengths do you see in Garry's game that you have to respect and be aware of? And then on the flip side, where are the holes that you feel that you can exploit with your more dynamic striking style?
Yeah, I think the one thing that he's good at is gauging rhythm and timing. Um, but that is with conventional mixed martial arts fighters. It's very difficult. In fact, it's actually easier for me when I have somebody that understands rhythm, because I can feed people false rhythms, feed people false, uh, you know, um, techniques and movements, so they anticipate the wrong thing, and then that's when they leave themselves exposed. And I think his best asset in being able to read strikers really well is also now going to be his worst asset, and it's something that he's not going to be able to switch off. So he's gonna want to try to read a pattern, which is near enough a Da Vinci Code for him. So this is where his best asset is also going to be his worst asset, in my opinion.
All right, let's take us through, the dream finish Saturday. How do you imagine your hand getting raised, rounds, fashion? What's the imaging here for you getting your hand raised Saturday?
No, I always go again. Anytime I respect a fighter, I always say second round. And the reason I say when I respect a fighter, I say second round is because um, if I believe I can rattle you early enough, and sometimes I can do that within the first minute of standing in front of an opponent. I reckon I can, get a finish quite early. I respect him enough to say, you know what, it may take a little bit longer. He may be, especially being an undefeated fighter, there's going to be a certain stubbornness to not want to lose, to not let that dream fade. Um, and even when things are going completely wrong, there's still going to be a stubbornness, like I'm going to keep fighting, more so than when they're actually more experienced. So that kind of like not going to give up attitude may carry him through to the next round. But I think I can get it done in the second round.
Not to look too far ahead, but there's another great fighter from the UK at the top of this division. You had said previously that you feel like there might be one more fight for you before that title shot. If you did get, ideal scenario, get your hand raised this weekend, who do you want next, and potentially where would you like that fight to take place?
Again, it's difficult to say. Again, I am aiming for the top. I think the fight puts me in the top circle, which means the title fight can happen at any moment. Likeliness is obviously Leon Edwards, the champ, is fighting next month. So it gives. I think he's going to have a certain amount of time off as well, and so on and so forth. So, you know, potentially end of the year, but I reckon he may get another fight. There's other fighters in our division that are doing exceptionally well, that potentially can argue their case to having that fight first. And for me, it's just whoever's available. I don't really care too much who it is. It's about what that fight does to. If that fight is the fight, if if the UFC said this fight is a title contention fight, then I'm taking it. It does. I really don't care who that what name pops up. But yeah, and our division is an exceptional division, so there's loads of fighters. So there's no point fixating on one or the other fighters. Whoever comes out is who I need to be ready for.
Final question here, and then we'll let you go. Another huge striking matchup in the main event on Saturday. I know you said you had sparred with Jiri before, and Pereira, also a very prolific striker. How do you see that fight taking place, and who do you like in that main event?
You know what? Stylistically wise, it's definitely Jiri I would like, give to, in terms of how awkward he is, the angles of punches that he come from, how fast he can cover the ground. He's just very tricky, a very tricky fighter. But when you have somebody with that kind of power, it's very hard to like, examples is like Chuck Liddell in terms of MMA. Examples is like, what Deontay Wilder was, or Mike Tyson back in the day, is regardless of what's happening to them, if they could be losing the whole fight, and that type of power means I only need to get you once, and in 25 minutes, the likeliness is they can get you at least once. And it's something like, even when I watched that Jamal Hill fight for Pereira, when I actually looked at that shot, it looked like it barely grazed him, and it switched his lights off completely, which shows you how dangerous this man is power wise. You can't deny or overlook that type of power. So I think with that said, I'm edging it to Pereira. But what a great fight! What a great replacement fight! How well the UFC have done to put that together in such a short space of time. Having lost such a big fight. But yeah, I think what a great replacement fight. I'm looking forward to that one, definitely.
Amazing replacement fight, but honestly, an amazing card in general, namely also with you kicking it off there. So super excited for this Saturday at 3:03. Chief among one of those fights, you and Ian Machado Garry will be a blast. Thank you, MVP. Good luck this weekend, and we'll be watching, man.
Excellent. Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Yeah.
The toughest cycling race of the year is back. The Tour de France takes the world's top cyclists on a mountainous 21-day journey. Stream exclusive coverage all race long starting Saturday, June 29th at 6:30 a.m. Eastern on Peacock. Joined now by UFC veteran Brian Ortega on the verge of his next fight at UFC 303. A whirlwind, Brian, last couple of weeks here. I know it's, quick turnaround, short notice fight. But this excites you, right? It was a big reason why you took it. You said was the challenge. What's the preparation been like, if at all, over the last couple of weeks?
It's just been a 2-week weight cut. Simple as that. There's no real training, no real nothing other than just getting ready for this and cutting all the way down to make it.
Have you ever had a fight on this short notice before, or is this a new frontier for you?
No, I've had short notice fights before.
What fight was that?
Thiago Tavares and Frankie Edgar.
What lessons from those two fights are you bringing to the table here to help you out?
Just go for it, man. That's it. There's opportunities that you go for it. They allow you to not really dwell in a whole camp and thinking about your opponent. They just go by this quick. Right now, after we're done here, I go to the presser, I cut weight, we weigh in, and then we fight. There's no time to think.
You mentioned this is basically just a 2-week weight cut. I mean, how difficult was it knowing in your mind that you're bulking up for 155, as you mentioned, for this Sphere fight, and now you're doing a quick U-turn? Has it been tougher? How would you rank this weight cut with other weight cuts you've done?
We're sitting, relatively as good as we're going to be come today. So based off that, every weight cut is different, man. So I cannot tell you that. When I go in there right now after this presser, that's when we really find out.
Tough challenge in Diego Lopes here. What parts of his game do you feel that you have to respect, and what parts of your game do you think you match up favorably? It's going to help you win on Saturday.
I feel like you have to respect him everywhere. The guy is, he's a firecracker right off the bat. So he's someone that you got to give him his respect. They're 4-ounce gloves, but at the end of the day, I have a good amount of experience, and I'm no rookie when it comes to wars.
You used the analogy before, a young lion versus an old lion. And do you remember when you were that young lion and like how tenacious you were in your first few fights in the UFC, and how have you grown and changed over the years up to now?
I mean, I'm still a lion. That's the thing. I'm still a lion, holding my rank, holding my spot. So at the end of the day, I'm here. Whoever wants to take it, then we're gonna have to battle it out for it.
Do you do any like visualization drills or anything? Like, how do you see your fight, your hand getting raised on Saturday? What round, method? Do you ever think about that?
This fight, no. Just like I said, man, it happened in such a short notice that, I mean, who knows?
You've used a lot of spiritual motivation recently in your career. You've alluded to, Fearless Church and how impactful that's been. I know we don't have a lot of time, and that's a pretty deep topic to get into, but I guess just where are you at mentally and spiritually now that you might not have been a year or two ago, and how has that improved you as not just a fighter, but as a person as well?
I'm in a good place in my life right now. For the first time in my life, I'm actually in a good place. My entire life, I've always been lost. I've always been out of place, chasing the wrong things, doing the wrong things, idling the wrong ideas, and now I feel like I got peace, joy, tranquility, purpose. I have all that now in my life, and it feels good.
I think it's very noticeable in your media interviews and everything that this is a different Brian Ortega. A lot more tranquil, a lot more peace. Did that kind of coincide too with your last fight with Yair? There seemed to be like a lot of redemption there, getting that fight back after a long layoff and proving to yourself that you did turn a corner, not just in your fighting game but in your life as well.
Absolutely, man. It was a cherry on top of everything that we've been going through.
Have other fighters come up to you, seeing your walk through your faith and notice any differences in how you approach the fight game and ask for advice or tutelage now that you are kind of that old lion that you've referenced before?
No, a lot of fighters send me messages on Instagram, and then they're acknowledging what I'm doing, and they're saying like good stuff.
I don't want to get too far ahead of things. You got a big fight this weekend, but is the plan to still go to 155 no matter what, or could that continge on a few things that could happen this weekend against Lopes?
It's my manager's job, so we'll see what happens with them, and we'll see what goes on with the UFC and what we can make happen. So I'm both interested in featherweight, 55, so we'll see how it goes.
You said previously that you do have you did get a name for that Steer fight at 155. I know you're not probably going to mention it, but are there dream fights at 55 that you want? Or are there any big names that are on the horizon?
Big names that are scary that the world thinks I have no business being in there with them, so I might as well go up in there with them.
Well, Brian, thank you for the time. I appreciate it. I know you got a quick turnaround, a big weight cut. Good luck this weekend and good luck in the future at 55, 45. Wherever your journey might take you.
Thank you.
Get your day started with Bet the Edge. Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick have all your betting needs covered. New episodes drop every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern, whether you're targeting spreads and totals, circling player props, or looking for value in futures markets. These guys have it all. UFC 303 this Saturday, and of course, we cannot talk the fight game without talking our best bets with Brad Thomas. Brad, thanks for joining us. I know you're grinding out some Euros and some Copa soccer, so thank you for taking the time to talk some cage fighting and some of your bets. First of all, how's things going on your end, and what are you looking forward to the most on this card?
Man, things are going great. It's funny. There was so much uncertainty about this card, and as a person who loves combat sports and loves looking forward to when they come on, you just get a little antsy, right? Like, where are they going to fill in? How are they going to make this card better? And I think we have some decent fights, and I'm actually looking forward to this Ian Garry versus Michael Page fight the most. And I think a little bit has to do with me kind of underestimating MVP in the first fight. If you don't mind, I'll go straight into it if that's cool with you.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. Yeah. So in that last fight for MVP, I was definitely on Holland, and I kind of thought it would be an easy fight, right? It was anything but. MVP, was able to stand in there, bang, land some nasty elbows. He also was able to protect himself on the ground against a black belt, and that didn't go unnoticed. And then when we move over to this fight against Garry, Ian Garry is a great striker, but I think this is going to be a tough bout for him. I'm actually going to take MVP. And for me, it's MVP's ability to go in and out, to close the distance quickly. If we look at the last fights that Ian Garry had, it was a lot of him having the massive advantage in striking, but the unorthodox striking of MVP, his speed, his quickness, and he has legitimate knockout power. I think that it could end the undefeated run for Garry there. And I thought this price would be closer to like a pick'em at plus 130. Even if you think Garry is just a little bit better, there's no way that you can lay minus 155 when you got MVP, who's just as talented, at plus 130. And it's a little funny too. MVP is already talking about his fight with Edwards, going to bring it to Britain. You talked about Euros. This is what's coming home, is the massive title fight and not the Euro 24 title for England. I love that in his presser.
Yeah, I audibly laughed when I heard that from a Brit about how annoyed he was with it's coming home slogan. But to your point, if this Leon Edwards, if he can get possible law and this fight materializes, chances are I feel like that would happen in the UK, maybe next year. But yeah, that would be the legit coming home. I like your pick here with MVP, and also, I mean, between two strikers, probably non-zero chance that this ends up becoming a finish, which if you wanted to risk a little more, you'd probably take longer odds on an MVP knockout. Yep. But yeah, just straight money line is really safe there. I know you also like the co-main. You mentioned that previously before we started taping with Ortega and Lopez. What do you like here about this fight?
Yeah, I think this price is just drastically wrong, right? Minus 145. I've seen Diego Lopez be as short as minus 130. I thought the minus 130 was something that you absolutely had to jump on. Brian Ortega, let's give him his flowers, right? Dude's hard to finish. He last time he was finished, obviously was against Yair, but this guy has a brutal chin, right? But man, Diego Lopez is phenomenal. Great striker. He'll be able to match up on the ground too with Ortega. I just think that this is Diego Lopez's time. When you look at the two fighters and you just compare the two in just terms of the it factor, I think Diego Lopez brings that in. He's coming in on a 3-fight win streak. Obviously, it's kind of apples to oranges when we compare the talent level of the fighters that Ortega was fighting compared to the fighters that Diego Lopez. But I think it's Diego Lopez's time now. Dude's just legit, and he looks the part. I think he's going to ride high. I also want to point out one more thing about this fight that I thought was really interesting. Brian Ortega is actually, bumping up weight classes. I don't know how that affects the fight, like in terms of mentality, but I just think it's one of those where Diego Lopez knows this is his shot to get at Ortega because they're probably not going to have another fight anytime soon.
You mentioned that weight movement with Ortega, and this was a last-minute fight, so it's hard to really tell at this point, what that weight cut's going to be like for someone that was planning on fighting at 55 in September, probably already bulking up. And then to your point, last minute, I mean, Diego Lopez is younger, he's fresher. This is a guy that's probably more capable of getting up off the couch and fighting, whereas Ortega has got a little more wear and tear. It seems like he's having surgery every other year at this point in his career. So, yeah, I do kind of lean on maybe more so favoring the younger, fresher guy when it comes to these short notice fights. So pretty astute picks there, Brad. Main event time. Let's talk about the big scrap. The UFC did a great job of finding a backup for this McGregor fight, which a lot of people were concerned about, but a great scrap on deck nonetheless. What do you like here?
Okay, so I want to talk about this really fast, where this fight, minus 140 for Pereira, plus 115 for Jiri here. And I could not separate the two in terms of what I wanted to do, right? We obviously know Pereira won that first match, but it was a battle. It was a war. It was a fun match. But I think Jiri actually is going to have a little bit more cautious approach, knowing that he can piece up Pereira in this fight. If I were to have to pick a winner, I would go with Alex. Obviously, I think the dude is just a whole different class that we're seeing. And it's even after that Izzy loss, right? Back at 287, he always had this like professionalism when he's in the cage or when you see him training. And I think that's going to shine through here. What an amazing replacement fight. But from a betting perspective, right? If I'm torn between the two, I have to take the underdog at plus 115. While I still think Pereira is going to win, I just say if it's a coin flip, then you have to take plus 115. But listen, Steven, this is one of those fights where I think you don't need a bet. You just grab your popcorn, you enjoy the war. Because if it's anything like the last fight and we get more than 2 rounds, we're going to have an absolute battle on our hands.
Yeah, and I mean, and if you listen to Jiri's, fight week interviews, Pereira using some spiritual weapons to sway this one, which is a very interesting. It sounds like a WWE promo or something, like old like Undertaker stuff, But yeah, crazy fight. It's so hard to bet against Alex right now.
So
I mean, the guy The guy looks just like unstoppable. If I were to bet, I think maybe some like round totals, maybe like you said, this might be more conservative. It's a rubber match. It's coming back. I mean, these guys fought only last fall, so maybe they're a little more cautious. Maybe Jiri's a little more cautious, which seems crazy to say out loud. I mean, this is a guy that just throws caution to the wind half the time, but maybe they can just get over that round total and win some money. But yeah, this thing's
it's crazy though. It's crazy. The round total prices are horrible for them to go over 1.5 rounds minus 175, but for them to get to the third round over 2.5 is plus 115. So you're sitting at like, this is either going to be a battle. These dudes are done early, or they're just going to grind it out. It's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, if there is a way to white knuckle through the first 2 rounds, I feel like grinding out plus 115 is probably it. So, all right, yeah, I'd probably just be watching this one for fun, but yeah, very tantalizing card nonetheless. Brad, thank you so much. Please enjoy the fights this weekend, and we'll definitely catch you next time, my friend.
Absolutely, thanks for having me, man.
And that's it for us from this edition of Octagon Circles and Squares. Please enjoy UFC 303 and stay tuned to this channel for the latest updates on all your combat sports news. Thanks again. Enjoy the fights.